So today I thought I would make a quick video on how to transfer your magnetic tape from one of these small VHSC tapes into a full-size VHS cassette. These smaller tapes are typically used in some of the older video cameras, and a lot of you will have a lot of special family memories sitting on these tapes, and there may be circumstances in which you wish to transfer this tape physically to do a transplant into a full-size cassette. Now, why might you want to do that? Well, you might have a damaged cassette that can no longer be played, or you might not have access to one of these adapters. This is a VHSC to VHS adapter where you physically place your cassette inside here and it will allow you to play it in a regular VHS. If you do not have one of these, or if you're like me and you have one that is low quality and untrustworthy, you might not wish to use this. I bought this one off eBay and it has already damaged several of my tapes, which means I will no longer be using it. If you do have access to a high quality one, using that is probably your best idea. Having said that, if you absolutely require transferring your tape from here to here, it is an extremely easy process. It doesn't require any special tools, it just requires a little bit of patience and a little bit of care. But it's not rocket science and it is very easy to do. So without waffling on any further, I will film myself doing this. This is a special tape for me. I really want to preserve what is on this tape, and I'll walk you through the process. As a first step, you're going to need a VHS tape, which you no longer require any of the footage that is on this, because we are going to be disposing of all of this tape here. First thing we do is disassemble this tape. It's incredibly easy to do, no special tools are required. It is just 5 small screws that need to be removed, and then you can break apart the tape. Be sure not to lose these screws, because you obviously will require them when it comes time to reassembly. I find it best when splitting the case to have the window side up. It is better for preventing any springs or smaller pieces within the cassette from falling everywhere. Another thing is to make sure, if you do have a sticker along the front here, that you remove it or put a cut through it beforehand. Otherwise it will obviously prevent you from splitting the two halves. So that comes off extremely easily, revealing the very simple contents of the VHS tape. As you can see here, there are these little locking mechanisms which are in place to prevent the two wheels or two drums from being able to rotate freely. You can hear them ratcheting as I turn this. When you insert the tape into the machine, underneath there is a small hole here which has a piece of plastic which gets pushed in by the video machine, which pushes this piece of plastic up, which releases these mechanisms and allows it to spin freely. So what we're going to want to do is remove both of these drums, and we are going to discard all of this unwanted tape, and we're going to keep the clear leader which connects both ends of the tapes to these drums. We need to keep those attached, as we're going to use them as our joining point for our VHSC tape. Just for reference, it's usually worth taking some photos of how this is arranged. Just grab your phone, take some photos so you know when you put it back together how this tape is supposed to be routed through these little rollers. Failing that, you can always refer back to this video. So these should very easily slide out of the cassette. We carefully put this aside. Try not to tip it upside down if you can, as these rollers will come loose, but they easily go back in place. It's quite easy to remember how they go, and you also want to try and avoid disconnecting these springs because it can be a little bit fiddly to put back on. So put that aside somewhere safe, and now we can focus on the main task, which is getting rid of this old tape and spooling on the tape we need. So as I said, we're going to keep the clear leader on here. It is a very simple process. It is a very simple process of taking a regular pair of scissors and cutting through. Don't cut it too short because you want to give yourself as much wiggle room as required to do any further adjustments later. We keep that set aside. Now the task that loses its novelty very, very quickly is despooling this reel. Unfortunately, you cannot separate these two halves. It would make the process far easier. Instead, you're literally going to have to pull all of this tape off, and you will be surprised at how much tape these reels actually hold.
One hour later.
Now, I was not joking when I said you'll be surprised how much tape is actually held in one of these. So now we take the other end after the lengthy process of despooling, and we do the same thing as before. Just give that a cut, and the rest of that tape we will throw in the bin. These are your two halves, which we will splice this tape into. Try not to get them mixed up just because of the direction at which the leader tape is fed. If you do get them mixed up, it shouldn't take too much brain power to figure out which way they go. So now we need to disassemble the VHSC cassette and connect one end of the tape to this spool, and then we can wind this spool to load it with the tape from this cassette. Very straightforward. On these VHSC tapes, there is a little tab just in here that you need to depress with a flathead screwdriver, and I will show you how to do that. The tab that needs to be depressed, it's slightly obscured from the camera by the tape, so I have another cassette here which has no tape in it, which will make it easier to see. You'll see that here. You simply push on that with the screwdriver and it should help you separate the two halves. It's not difficult at all. And of course, I have forgotten one of the screws. There's only 4 on here, so you'd think I'd be able to remember them. On this cassette they're all the same length, so you don't have to worry about which order they go in, but other cassettes may be different. There you go, that comes apart. You'll see it's very similar to the VHS tape, except their mechanism here for locking is only on one side, and it's a much more simple mechanism. So the next step here will be to unspool this side until we get to the clear leader, and we will cut that clear leader, and then we will use sticky tape to attach this tape to this clear leader, and we will start spooling onto this, and it will unspool from this one, and it is a bit of a time-consuming process. It is also actually a very good opportunity to do any cleaning on the tape if you have any mold infestation, which most of these tapes will have to some degree. It is a good opportunity while doing that spooling to take a cloth such as this, which I have in this case taped around some ear cleaners. It is a good opportunity if you see any bad mold damage on the tape to try and wipe it off. You do need to be careful. If the infestation is bad, you sort of can't reverse the damage, but you can hopefully stop the spread. Okay, I'm at the point now where I have reached the leader. You'll see this tape actually has quite a bit of damage on here, so I do need to be delicate to try not to snap the tape when I'm doing the loading. Just note that if you do snap the tape, or if you are doing this transfer because you haven't already snapped tape, you can just use a small amount of tape to do the splice on the magnetic tape itself. That will work. It won't last forever, so realistically you would only do that in order to run the tape once through a machine to create a copy, but it will work. You will obviously not get any video signal for that section of the tape where the splice has been created, but it will enable you to salvage the rest of the tape. So here now I will cut the leader. I'm going to give myself as much room along here as possible to allow me to correct any mistakes I might make. One thing to note when you're doing your splice, just ensure that you are doing the splice with the correct orientation, and really make sure you don't have any twist before doing it. Otherwise you will load the tape and it will be upside down with a twist in it, and you'll have to, at best, redo your work. At worst, you'll snap the tape. I'm not using any particularly fancy tape for this. I am using a clear tape. I don't believe that is necessarily a requirement. However, do note that the tape on the ends is clear for a reason. There is a light detection mechanism in the VCR player which detects that light can pass through that section of tape, and it is actually how the VCR knows it is at the end or beginning of a tape, so that it doesn't fast forward or rewind to a hard stop. So you'll see here I've cut a length of tape. It is a little bit too wide for my tape, so I will trim it and make some adjustment. It's better to try and trim it before it goes on. You can trim it afterwards, however. Just doing a quick visual check to make sure there are no twists or kinks. And there we have made that join. And I should be able to start spooling this tape. Now, if you felt so inclined, you could literally spool it as is by rotating by hand in here. I prefer to semi-assemble both cassettes and then do the winding process. That way, I think makes it a little bit safer and a little bit easier to do. So I will show you how I do that. One thing to be mindful of if you're putting this back on is that you can do damage with this flap. So for me, I actually remove these flaps from the tape when I'm doing this. They're not really necessary. They're just there for protection. I find it a little bit easier to just remove them. If you have a convenient way of locking this off and keeping it open while you do the loading, then do that. I just think it's too much risk, because if it flaps closed while you're spooling, you might tear your tape. So here is the flap removed, no longer a hazard. We can chuck this back on top. You do need to align these little inside diameter pins with these rollers when you're putting it back on. Very straightforward. Let's do the same for this cassette, and then we can flip them both over and start the loading process properly. Because there is no benefit in rushing, I will return the screws just to make sure nothing comes apart during the loading process. If these are memories that have been waiting 30 or 40 years to be looked at again, they can wait another few minutes for you to do it correctly. Now that that is done, all we have to do is rotate this drum to start spooling the tape from here to here. It is a long and very boring process. You don't want to rush it, but also there are ways to speed it up. You can simply do this by hand, and it might take you an hour, possibly more, to do. Or you can try and make the job easier for yourself by using a drill. Now, I don't necessarily recommend this because there is a much higher risk of ripping the tape. However, if you're comfortable doing it and you want to save your wrist from being worn out, then this is the way to go. I just found in my pile of junk a random bolt which happens to fit well in the spooling mechanism. You might come up with a different solution. I just chuck the bolt into the drill, and I ensure that I am doing this slowly and carefully. And as you'll see, we're beginning to spool the VHSC tape onto the VHS. One thing that you might want to certainly do is, if you are going to do this with a drill, check your progress, and when you're getting close to the end, I would very strongly suggest doing this by hand so you don't accidentally get to the end of the tape and snap the clear leader. Yep, we are now at the stage where I think it is much safer to simply wind by hand. You can do this with your finger, or in my case, I will use the bolt from the drill. You can also, if you have access to an old broken VCR or old camera that use these tapes, you can just pull out one of the, winding mechanisms from that and twist it by hand. Very good timing, because with just a few twists by hand, we're already at the clear leader. So I got quite lucky there that I was checking at the interval that I was, because if I'd kept going with the drill, there's a good chance this would have snapped. So now the next step is to take the cases apart again, connect this clear leader to this drum, and then reassemble the VHS. And because all the tape is on this side, I'll have to rewind the tape, and then it should play just fine in the VCR. The reason I'm flipping that over is because the clear side is up and the clear side is up, and I'm just reducing my chance of getting anything mixed up. In this case, I'm going to leave this assembled while I do this part, because it'll stop tape from sort of getting loose while I manipulate it. Quick and easy cut. I made that look much harder than it should be, so I'm going to recut that to ensure I get a slightly cleaner cut. Exact same process as before. A little bit of sticky tape. Make sure it's not too wide. Do the join. Now that that's done, it's time to just put this inside the case and we are done. Just pay attention to how this tape has been run through these rollers. Now that that is done, time for a quick and easy reassembly, and then we will test it in the machine. This is the finished tape. It needs to be rewound, so the spool is on this side. Now the tape is rewound. You may have noticed it stopped when it got to the clear leader and then has sort of advanced slightly. Press play and it should work. And here you have it. This footage is close to 30 years old, and it has been sitting on that VHSC tape for that long, and it is now playing in a full-size VHS cassette. So there you have it. The process works. There are some risks. However, if you calculate those risks and deem that this is worthwhile and something that you can't avoid, it's definitely worth doing.